Hey everyone, welcome to the Meridian Learning and Development Hangout with Fistful of Talent. I'm Allison with Meridian, and today we're going to be talking about if you build them, they will stay. I'm joined by Kris Dunn, who is a CHRO of Kinetix and founder of Fistful of Talent, and Ed Nathanson, who is the founder of Red Pill Talent. Hey guys, how are you?
Great. How are you doing?
Before we get started, I want you guys to explain who you are and where you are right now.
All right, I'll go first. Hey, I'm in Atlanta, headquarters of the company I'm a part of, Kinetix, and behind me, I thought I'd give everybody a smile. This is Ari Gold from Entourage with the paintball gun. Not exactly best practices from an employee perspective, but we're going to get to those.
And Ed?
Hi, Ed Nathanson, and as Emily mentioned, I'm the founder of Red Pill Talent. I'm sorry, Allison mentioned. And I'm up here in Boston, and I thought for today, since we're talking learning, I would bring my action figure of the best teacher there ever was, Mr. Miyagi, who I keep in my office here with me, and as you'll notice, still in the box for posterity's sake.
Wax on, wax off.
Okay, let's get started. So my first question, and I'm going to direct this one at Ed, is how does learning improve recruitment and retention?
Yeah, so I always say in today's world, the market for talent is incredibly tight. And because it's so tight, candidates have more than just options. They have information. And with that information, they're able to talk and investigate and kick the tires on your employment brand far before they ever even consider engaging with you. And if you look at the that are attracting talent, it isn't just because they have ping pong tables and foosball and beer. It's because there's a perception, whether real or not, of them investing in their employees. I think of immediately, Allison, first thing comes to mind is if you saw the article a few days ago that went kind of viral in the recruiting world about Starbucks paying $4,000 for every employee's education, giving them as part of a benefits package. That got incredible response, and I have no doubt from some of the numbers they shared in that article, the effect it's having on bringing people to them. On top of that, what's the number one reason you always hear about people leaving a company or going to a new position? You hear that term growth and opportunity. And the biggest mistake, I think, and you're going to hear me say this a lot, is that companies don't address this internally before it's time for them to leave and to seek it elsewhere. So if you invest in them, if you build in them, and you give them opportunity to grow where they are, not only are they going to come to you and find that attractive, but they're going to stay.
Good points.
Yeah, and Ed, I'd just chime in with that. You know, you mentioned Starbucks, and you know that's gotten a lot of attention. Pizza Hut, of all people, did something similar with tuition aid. And I think that's interesting as well. You know, you mentioned people lurk around and try and find out more about you long before they ever apply. I was just talking to somebody yesterday, and they bandied about the percentage that 74% of the people who come to your career site leave before ever taking action and applying. So, you know, Ed, I know you're at Red Pill Talent. I'm at Kinetix. You know, what we try and help people with is you want to tell stories. You know, to the extent you are investing in your employees, you want to share those stories. They're not going to go viral, right, like Starbucks for most of us, but when they hit your career site, you want to share those stories. Make sure they're front and center so people can see that investment, because that's going to give people that sense that this is an employer worth taking a chance on, and especially if they're gainfully employed. And we all like passive candidates who are gainfully employed. That's another like Google Hangout to talk about whether that's, you know,
Absolutely.
real or not, and whether we should do that. But just like promoting that on your career site, I think would get people to take action at a much higher rate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that segues really well into my next question, which goes into how as a manager do you communicate and kind of change the mentality to emphasize learning and career development within your organization?
Yeah, so I'll take that one first. I think, you know, we're seeing kind of a sea change in that most employees aren't, you know, with everything that's happened in the economy in the last 20 to 30 years, it's not the workforce and the work life, if you will, that our parents once had. I think loyalty to companies is at an all-time low. And I think the best managers out there, and probably the best assets that a company has, is managers who can create retention regardless of what the company's stance on retention is. And what I'm seeing personally with a lot of the companies we help and the best managers that I work with is I think those managers have this kind of, and this is one of the reasons I've got RA Gold behind me, is those managers have kind of this stance that I'm the career agent for the employees who work for me. So what they do is they progressively help the employee think about their own career, and they find educational opportunities, whether those are formal or informal. They try and help the employee grow, and they really do that, even if they're concerned in the back of their mind that they might lose them at some point. I think the best managers become career agents in that regard for their employees. They always want to keep them. So like my whole adage is, I hope you're here forever, but my job's to develop you and make you ready for the next step. And if something happens, we can't give that to you, and you have to go elsewhere to find that. I'm going to live with that because I know you'll give me great referrals, and you'll probably end up being a boomerang hire at some point.
Yep. I agree with everything Kris just said, and I'm going to take it even a little bit more granular and say that one of the biggest shifts that managers have to make is understanding that today isn't necessarily what's most important, right? And so they're always worried about the task at hand. And they're worried about, if I invest and I give these people learning opportunities, it's going to take away from what I need done today.
Right.
And that's very short-term thinking. And ultimately, we ask a lot of times, and I see it in clients, I see it in companies I've worked at, where we say, we're going to invest in you, but you have to do it on your own time and on your own schedule. And then what ends up happening is it doesn't feel like you're actually investing in them so much as maybe paying for a service for them to go to. Whereas the impact of thinking longer term as opposed to that task that day and saying to you, no, it's important. We are investing. This is a benefit for us. It's not just for you. You learn these skills. Guess what? You might not get the task we need you to do today or tomorrow, but a year from now, you're going to be doing that task plus 10 times more and managing people maybe potentially as well, whatever the case may be. So it's kind of getting out of the run-of-the-mill, day-to-day kind of thinking and kind of stepping into a longer-term view and allowing them as manager, allowing your employees to see that learning is part of your job, right, and not something that you do on your own time. I think that's a different shift, and I don't see a lot of people doing it, but I think it would make a world of difference.
Yeah, that's great. So my next question, and if there's anyone that's watching right now, feel free to put any question and answers in the QA section to the right of your screen. My next question is, what sort of development programs should you offer? And I think that this is I'm painting with a very broad brush here, but are there quick wins or anything that you suggest to start with?
So I guess I'll start. I hate surveys. I think that they're a colossal waste of time. And back in my corporate HR days and my recruiting days, and now with engagement surveys, I think there's a grain of truth to be found, but oftentimes it's more an exercise than anything. But I think in this case, maybe not necessarily surveying, but more on a company-wide scale, but on a team-wide scale, ask them. Ask your employees what they want to learn. I think the biggest mistake companies make with LMSs or with any learning initiative for that matter is saying, here's what we want you to know, right? Here's what's important for us. When at the end of the day, people, again, talking about retention, talking about attraction, all those things, is when they feel that they can learn what they need to learn for their careers, for the paths that they're interested in, what they're passionate about. Yes, it has to be aligned with the business, but if you let them make that decision and you actually ask them, you're going to find a world of different response. People are going to feel again that you're investing in them, and then you're going to actually get more bang for your buck for that investment. If you're asking someone to go to leadership training and they have no interest in ever being a manager, that's wasted time, that's wasted money. Absolutely. You cannot check the box with this. And so even for larger corporations, to do this on that kind of level might be more time consuming, but I would argue it's really, really worth it. So for example, I had a company I was at a few years ago. I remember we had a lot of engineers that were being forced to go to public speaking or different kinds of, softer skill kind of things, and they had no interest in it. And maybe they needed it, But what they really wanted was to get certified in Hadoop or learn the latest different technologies that are out there. What would have happened if we did that? They'd be cranking out code faster. They'd stay with us because they're engaged with it and they feel there's a path to do new technologies, new things, and it would help the company.
Yeah, and Ed, I'll piggyback. I love the fact that you're focused on asking the employee what they want. I think that's a key part. I think just to break it down, and you've alluded to these in what you said. I mean, there's skill-based training, and skills like very broadly defined, right? And that can be for a low-level employee, but it can also be for a software engineer, for example. There's skill-based training because we know that as people get better at their job, they become more confident, they're more satisfied. So I think people can still break it down that way. They can ask people what they want to do, and to the extent that that's discretionary and not lined up with their current job, there's tremendous power in that, right? And that's a great place to make the investment. And then I do think, and you alluded to this one too, I do think that you want to keep an eye on, soft skills is one way to put it. I guess I would call it professional grade training that can open up the horizons for that person. Now, clearly, as you mentioned, you don't want to do that if they're not interested, like in broadening their horizons. And there's a lot of, you mentioned software engineers and engineers in general. I don't want to like stereotype them, but a lot of those folks aren't generally interested in broadening out. But for the white-collar professional, trying to make them prepared for, even if it's not a management position, just make them better at some of the soft skills necessary to do their job. I think you can go skill-based training, kind of that professional grade training that prepares them for something more. And then I do agree with you. I think just simply asking them and be willing to make that discretionary spend on things that maybe you can't link to their job or even their next job, doing that, it's like money in the bank. And I think, and this is probably your next question, Allison, I think we often think that we're going to lose people when we make investments that aren't core to the job or the next job they're going to be in. Time and time again, what I see is that links the person to the organization to a greater degree. And if you're not afraid of losing people, you're actually going to lose fewer people by taking those types of actions.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. That was definitely my next question.
Well, ask it anyway.
Let's talk about the big elephant in the room. A lot of people are scared to get people certified in certain things because if they invest in that money, then they're going to walk out the door and go to another competitor and take those skills with them when they leave. So kind of what do you do to make sure that your employees don't leave and to kind of alleviate managers' fears that they will?
Well, I'll like jump in very briefly and then I'll throw it to Ed. I think, if you're scared of that and that's a reason not to take action, Ed kind of alluded to this in the jump of what he said, just right off the jump, is that if you're scared of that and you don't take action, guess what? You basically predetermined that people are going to leave your company. And I think I would do some segmentation with that, right? Let's say that you feel like people are going to leave the company and you don't train people, you don't invest in learning, okay? What happens is your best people have options. The people you can least afford to leave the company who have options are going to feel that. They're going to seek opportunities, as Ed said at the jump, to grow. They're going to seek those opportunities elsewhere, and they're gone. And those are the people you can least afford to lose. Meanwhile, the people who are tied to the security of having a job, and that job just so happens to be with you, the people that you can most afford to lose are the ones that stick around. Ed, I don't know how you feel about that. That's what I see time and time again.
Yep, no, I couldn't agree more. And to that point, I'd also add that, it's the old adage, if you love somebody, set them free, right? And in this case, it's absolutely true. One of the elephants in the room is let's be honest, it's money. It's investment from a company perspective where they might not see in return for some time, right? Typically, company bottom line and looking at these investments, it's going back to what I said earlier, it's about, do you do today or do you think longer term? And it goes specifically to this whole fear of people leaving when they get this certifications. I'm going to take it to a recruiting analogy for a second. So a lot of times when I talk to my clients or I've been at companies myself, you'd see these requirements come in that I like to call the Bo Derek, and I'm going to age myself here, but the Bo Derek requirements, which is I've written these 10 things on a piece of paper, right? and I need the person to have these 10 things, okay? And then what happens all the time is you're literally searching for 6 months, still haven't found the person who has all those 10 things and can, fly over tall buildings and, have bullets repel off them. And then guess what happens? If you had found that person who wanted to learn and had the ability to have whatever that skill is or that experience that you needed and trained people internally, you would get them at probably half the cost of what a market cost would get,
right.
And you'd get someone hungry do more with you and see you as the growth opportunity. And the message that sends throughout an organization, the ripples, if you will, that sends to people around them is that, wow, they aren't going external every time to get new talent. I see that opportunity for me here, right? They're going to teach me these things that are going to make me more valuable down the road. But yes, they might get wooed, and they probably will, by other companies. But the message of saying your opportunity to do these things in a shorter time period than it is for you to leave and job hop every year is very, very powerful.
And Ed, some of that's linked to just having a very remedial succession plan, right? So yep. I'm going to make the statement that not everybody is promotable in your company the way you just described, but we all know who the stars are within the jobs they're in, and what makes them stars probably transcends the specific skill set that they have, right? It's a certain level of assertiveness. It's the ability to deal with chaos. There's something that makes them unique. And guess what? Those are the people that are most pliable into 1 level up, 2 levels up, switching departments and filling a role, and they just figure things out. So I think a lot of that is linked with having, you don't have to do like formal succession planning, but you should always look around and say, hey, who are the smart people we have that we want to grow? And by the way, Ed, you know this as a talent guy, it's always cheaper to do what you described if you can find out who those smart people are than to go acquire the talent in the open marketplace. Like, it was cheaper. You got over your right shoulder. You've got, Ed, go ahead and talk so people can see this, and I'll come back in.
Yeah. So exactly to the point. I think, one of the easiest things to do nowadays is really kind of talk about, like that Drew Bledsoe and Tom Brady, right? Yeah. So internally, and I have, that is Tom Brady back there for here, but as a Boston guy, I'll tell you that you had this unknown talent that was a late pick, right, in the draft, was someone who was there and was rough and raw, but had potential and had ability. And then what ends up happening is that the star got injured and they had to throw him into action. And the ability to be patient with him now, granted he's Tom Brady, so he was successful from the very beginning, but that often doesn't happen. And so, but they were going to be patient. And when you have organizations that are patient and invested in learning, that provides the long run. And the people around them, then if you saw the rest of the team, which were not high draft picks, they start to elevate too. And again, you're right, Kris, not everyone is superstars. Not everyone is promotable. Absolutely true. But the message it sends to a company, even of those people, it says, there's opportunity here. And I would argue, and I know a lot of people don't agree with me on this, that you need Bs and some C pluses too.
You do.
In an organization too.
You're right.
And
hey,
so,
and Ed, I got to jump in and say, you've seen the pictures. You've seen the pictures of Tom Brady at the draft combine. Okay? He did not look, before Giselle and before his stylist and before like fancy sweaters, he did not look in any way like an NFL quarterback. So similarly speaking, in your company, there's a lot of people that have like this internal DNA that can make stuff happen and figure things out if you would only invest in. Because Tom Brady didn't look like an NFL quarterback, but you know what? He just had it internally. He was going to figure it out. He had a hot processor, up top in his head. Figured a lot of stuff out. And I know people get tired of the sports analogies, but there's a lot of young talent in your company that you can put into roles for half the cost. And I don't mean half the cost from a salary perspective, but you can give them a $10,000 raise to do another job, and you can sell that story on your career site, and it's going to make your company a lot stickier.
Awesome. Well, I think that we're reaching the end of the hour, so do you guys have anything else that you want to add? Final words before we, end?
What I would just say is that, learning within a company is something that is such a strategic asset. It absolutely is. And as we've kind of talked about here in our session is that it touches on retention, absolutely retention, but also attraction. Right? And as you want to grow and you want to keep the great people you already have, taking that time to actually invest in your people and giving them opportunity is the best PR internally and externally you will ever have. And the ripples, as I said, that start to go beyond that is unsaid but interpreted, is that there's almost in this kind of gig economy we're in, there's almost like, we believe in each other, a kind of a bond that starts to grow there that is just so atypical in today's economy, in today's world of business. And the companies that do this and do it well, and again, as Kris said, you don't invest in everybody if they're not worth it. But the people that you do and you do invest in, and that is just a difference maker on every different place. And you start to win. I hate the war for talent argument, but put cliche aside, that's how you win this battle, is by doing these things that others aren't, that's more humane, that's more personal, that's more interested in the individual and the longer term view of the company. So as I said, this is more than just a nice to have. I think it's an essential thing for businesses that are going to really stand out and be successful.
Hey, Allison, my closing thought is for all my HR brethren out there, stop thinking you have to treat people equally related to your investment in learning. Start treating people like kind of based on who they are and the potential they have in your company as a starting point, because you'll never start spending on learning if you think you have to treat everybody equally. Or if you do, it won't make the biggest impact.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you guys so much for offering up some great advice today. So I will talk to you guys later.
Thanks, Allison. Thanks, Ed.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.